Do you want to know the biggest mistake that developers make that's holding them back from real improvement? Then let's get into it. I'm Adrian Henry, and this is Hungry Turtle Code. If this is your first time on the channel and you like programming tutorials and advice videos for developers just like this one, then hit the subscribe button below and click the bell to get notified of my new uploads. All too often, I speak to beginner developers and I get this feeling that they're waiting for some point in the future where they'll be a good developer. And that seems to revolve around the idea that they feel intense frustration for not understanding basic concepts right now. And they expect that frustration to just disappear one day and they'll just get it. The problem is, that frustration will never go away. It just moves house. It morphs from one thing into another. It starts with not understanding what a function is for, and then you get over that frustration because you now understand it, and then you move on, and that frustration becomes frustration of not understanding how to deploy your app onto a web server, and then you figure that out. And then the frustration morphs into, how do I scale a database to handle the traffic that I'm currently getting? And the point is, there's always more stuff that you don't understand than there will ever be things you do understand. And therefore, the frustration just never goes away. In fact, you could even make the argument that the scope for that frustration grows over time. When you first start off, you don't know anything at all. And then you start to learn things, and the real estate that you own within the landscape of all possible knowledge starts to grow. Problem is, the more land you own, the more time it takes to upkeep all of that knowledge. And more importantly, the perimeter around that property will increase as your total knowledge increases. And the larger that perimeter of your knowledge is, the more you'll realize how much is outside of your knowledge when you start to assess the boundary of what you already know. And when your knowledge is small, the boundary of your knowledge is small, and therefore the amount you can see outside into the world of what you don't know is small. But as that grows, the amount that you see around you that you don't know starts to increase dramatically. And this leads to the old adage of the more you know, the more you begin to realize how much you don't know, or how little you do know. This dramatically increases the scope for potential frustration. So yes, as a beginner, you're frustrated because you don't understand the basics. But when you grasp those basics, you'll be frustrated because you don't understand the intermediate stuff and so on. And that cycle will only stop when you either know everything or you let go of the idea that you need to know everything. And of course, you will never know everything. So the only way to get out of that vicious cycle is to let go of the idea that you need to know everything. And be okay with not knowing everything. If you are one of those people who's really struggling in the early stages of learning programming, I don't mean any of this talk of perpetual frustration as a means to put you off learning it. I know it's tempting to hear about this lifelong frustration that's possible and just decide you should quit now. But that's actually the opposite of the message that I'm trying to put across to you. The core idea here is you need to let go of the idea of knowing everything and understanding everything deeply. Yes, you should strive to understand some things deeply, but it's impossible to understand everything deeply. So if you try, you're just going to end up drowning. You need to become okay with the idea that you don't know everything and that you will never know everything. And be okay with what you do know and simply strive to improve your knowledge at a sustainable rate. And sustainable is the key term there. But the biggest issue here is this problem transcends just beginner developers, especially in the JavaScript community. So much so that we even have a name for it, and we call it JavaScript fatigue. JavaScript fatigue is seen as a normal thing within the community, and I think that's an extremely dangerous idea. The JavaScript fatigue that people feel is just the same overwhelming feeling that beginners get, except it's felt by professionals who do this every day. And the only reason they feel that frustration is because they have it in their heads that they need to keep up with every single move that happens in the industry, every new technology that comes out, every new framework, every new paradigm of thinking. They have to keep up with it all. Or in other words, they think they need to know everything deeply. This is a massive problem. The industry moves way too fast for any individual to keep up. And this is why software is built by large teams now. Trying to keep up with all of this movement is obviously going to lead to fatigue and burnout. But the big problem with that is, when it does happen, people just think, oh, it's just because they're a JavaScript developer. It's JavaScript fatigue. And that just normalizes the behavior. But we should be warning people against it and not encouraging people to pursue an understanding of everything as if it's normal to do that. And this is also massively perpetuated by the myth of the 10x developer. Everyone wants to be a rock star. They want to be that developer that everyone looks at in awe. So people look at that and say, I want to be that. So people think to themselves, if I want to be that, logically, I should know everything deeply and then I'll be that rock star. But counterintuitively, you're much more likely to become that rock star if you specialize and focus on a specific skill set. So let's say you're in the market to buy a brand new watch. And like any conscientious person, you do extensive research to figure out what watch you want to buy. So which of these sites are you most likely to trust? iReviewWatches.com inherently holds more authority in the watch market, purely because they're more specific. That seems obvious. They specialize, and as a result, they receive more authority right from the get-go, even if their reviews aren't as good as the other site. We perceive them to be better and have more authority just because they're specializing in the exact thing that we want. So in the tech world, if you need help optimizing a SQL query, who'd you go to? The guy who's a specialist in SQL and knows a little bit about a few other different things? Or do you go to the guy who's kind of intermediate in a ton of things, one of which is SQL? I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? You obviously go to the specialist when you need help with the thing he specializes in. So fundamentally, you should be striving to be that specialist and then just know a little bit about a few other things that interest you. Ben Lesh made a great tweet to this point, and I'll show you it here. What he means here is it's okay to not be an expert in everything you try. It's okay to spend 30 minutes one day just tinkering with a new tool or a framework just to get an idea of how it works in a zero expectations, experimental kind of way, just because you want to, not because you're striving to be an expert in that new thing. Spending that 30 minutes occasionally won't make you an expert in any of the things you try. But it also won't lead to fatigue. But what it will do is expose you to all the things that are happening in the community. And then you get a better feel for what's going on, you get a better feel for what you like, you can pursue the things that excite you now, and all of that will improve you as a developer. And it might even open up some really interesting doors for things you actually do want to become an expert in. And then you can spend all the time you want pursuing that. But that door only opened because you started playing around with things in a way where you had no expectations of learning everything. So to end this video off, I'll just say that you should listen to yourself. If your mind and body are telling you that you're tired and you don't want to keep learning this new hot thing, it's okay to take a break. Frustration around the things that you don't understand is totally normal. Technology should excite you. So specialize in the thing that excites you most. And then spend small amounts of time experimenting and tinkering with other things. And then through that experimentation, maybe you discover something that excites you even more. And then you can start digging into becoming a specialist and an expert in that thing. So I hope you got something out of this video, and I hope it sort of put your nerves at ease about the frustration that you're feeling now as a beginner. And even if you're not a beginner, even if you're a seasoned professional and nobody's ever told you that this is normal, it's okay. Let me know in the comments if you like this kind of video. If you do like it, hit the like button. If you don't like it, hit the dislike button twice. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to get notified of all of my new uploads. But until next time, stay hungry and keep coding.